Good morning. My name is Derry, and today I want to talk about how you can best improve your art right now. Now, I've been in your shoes, admiring artistic talents that you put on a pedestal. They are gods amongst us mortals with how they can make a picture come to life. But your art sucks, and you can't figure out how to make it better. Let's find out why. Alright, to reel back real quickly, I don't know if your art sucks if you're watching this, and I don't think you should assume your art sucks. We're all traveling on different journeys. However, I've seen a lot of people come to me and put down their own art and say, "You're amazing, I just can't get there, I don't know how to improve." And oftentimes when I see higher end artists kind of respond to that, they end up giving pretty shaky advice, which is, "Oh, I got here by drawing every day, I got here by practicing. So just do that, just practice." I consider the advice of just practice to be an oversimplification to improvement. Really, when you want to improve, practice is important. Putting in your daily hours, repeating over and over again, effort of drawing and getting an understanding of what it is to draw, that is very important. However, just practice is very much too broad to understand what you should be doing when you have no experience with it. I think if you just practice, what's going to end up happening is you're going to keep repeating bad habits and not really grow a better understanding of what you're doing right or wrong. Instead, I highly suggest you go for fundamentals. Specifically, what I mean by fundamentals and learning your fundamentals is learning about shapes, form, learn perspective. A lot of beginner issues I see is a lack of confidence in their lines. That's absolutely okay when you're starting out. If you want to improve, you should really practice the way your hand moves across paper. I've seen a lot of people with very messy line art. It looks like a bunch of chicken scratches making out all the lines, and I don't think that's a very appealing kind of art style. Some people can mold it into a good way, but I'm referring to the types that haven't quite understood how to make a consistent line. So their chicken scratch is more due to a lack of confidence in their ability to perform clear communication of lines. To improve that, simply just try to get used to making long lines. Now, I'm going to just go very broad into the categories of fundamentals I think you should begin with, because this isn't exactly an art tutorial. This is just me rambling about what I think you should be prioritizing when you're trying to learn and improve at art. So, learning shapes and form, that's very important. There's an exercise of just drawing cubes and cylinders, rectangles. I think this is a really good exercise that helps you understand forms in 3D. You can apply a lot of the lessons you learn from drawing these cubes, these 3D shapes, to bodies, to proportions, to characters and environments. You see, the purpose of trying to learn these forms is learning how they move around in perspective. Once you have a clear idea of how a shape looks from different angles, you can really push it onto any other form you want it to be. For example, you can comprise the body as a bunch of cylinders and rectangles. You then get a better understanding of how the body kind of contorts around these shapes. I would say it's very important to do that if you don't want your drawings to look as flat. So yes, if you don't want your drawings to be looking flat, I would put more emphasis in learning shapes, form, and perspective. Learning how these different, very basic shapes you learn as early as kindergarten, just visualize them in different angles, in different stretches of perspective. To make them pop a bit more, it's important to understand light and shadow. A common mistake I see a lot of artists do is they don't have a light source in mind when they're going into a drawing. Now, I think it's good practice to try to have it as early as when you're doing the line work. Maybe not the first draft it's as important, but when you're doing the lines, you can add a lot of weight to them to show where the shadows are hitting and make them thinner where the light is not. That can give you a lot of understanding of how you're going to be shading it when you get to that stage of the drawing. Also, understanding the different levels of a shadow and highlight is very important. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but spend some time to find it out on your own. There's plenty of videos and resources online to understand lights and shadows. I would say my biggest blanket tip for that is make sure that all of your lighting is consistent. Your light source is always hitting every object from the same angle. That will make your art go a mile faster in progression if you're struggling with that. And understanding color is a very difficult journey. Color theory is very complex because there's not always a right or wrong. There's a lot of grays in the process. Understanding what color temperature is and how, a red can jump to a blue can be very confusing for people first picking up the skill. I would put a lot of practice into observation. And this goes into another wonderful point, references. The key to growing as an artist is being able to compare your art with objects in the real world or other artists. Constantly, people will skip on doing references. I am completely guilty of this myself, and the art suffers a lot for it. If you don't truly understand what you're drawing, how can you communicate it properly? It's very easy to do as well. You could go outside and take a picture of a tree, then draw exactly what you're seeing. If you have a drawing you like, but something feels off with it, a common practice I like to do is look at another artist that's drawn something similar, and then compare and contrast what they did that works so well, and try to understand how I can copy the nature of that. Now, am I saying you should trace a drawing? Probably not. I don't think tracing one for one is going to help you. If you're doing a photo study, make sure you are communicating that this is a photo study and try to credit whatever the source is from. If you took your own picture and you're using yourself, you don't really need to do it, but try to be polite and share credit where credit is due. And drawing down from reference, make sure you're never trying to trace it. Try to avoid color picking if you're using a digital software. Make sure that you just squint your eyes and try to draw your version of it compared to the actual thing. Now, a lot of things in drawing are a lot more digestible when you approach it with big, medium, and small shapes. That extends to the entire process of the piece itself. Whenever I draw something, I try to break down the big shapes. I then break down those big shapes into medium ones, and then those medium ones into smaller shapes. What I mean by that is, if I were to be drawing a head, I would try to get an understanding of the head shape first, before I focus on the eyes or the hair. Getting a good idea of what your silhouette looks like before tackling the finer details of any object within a scene can help a long way, especially when you get to more advanced subjects in art, such as compositions and storytelling. On top of that, I think something very important is you should draw what you love and draw what you don't. What do I mean by that? When I say draw what you love, draw something that excites you. Usually when you first start drawing, it's because there's a character you really like and you want to sketch them. Perhaps you had this brilliant idea and you wanted to put it to paper. Find what you love to draw and keep pursuing that. If you don't draw what you love, there's not really a point to drawing, in my opinion. Now, at the same time, you should be drawing things you don't love. And what I mean by that is drawing subjects that you struggle with. I think the best compromise is to do both in the same piece. If you're not good at backgrounds, make sure there's a character you love to draw with a good portion of the attention. That way, you get a little bit of what you want, and you work on what you're not so great at. It'll come a long way in helping you develop yourself as a better artist. And it makes it a lot easier to tolerate harder material, such as hands and feet. I know everybody hates those. And balancing colors and different lightings. It all can be a headache and overwhelming, but if you take the time to break it down into easier shapes, easier fundamentals, and drawing what you care about along the way will make every piece a journey that's fun to explore. Finally, you're going to want to rinse and repeat these steps. You can constantly grow as an artist. There's not really a stopping point. and that's a good thing. Eventually, you'll get to a level where you're okay with your art. You like it. Some days you'll hate it, some days you'll love it, and that won't go away either. Although, trying to apply these references, deepening your understanding of your fundamentals, those don't go away. Observation is key as an artist. And you're the only person capable of your own growth. Alright, so that is how I would recommend practicing productively. Thank you for listening to my rambles. I hope you had a good day. Take care. Goodbye.